Streaming experience. I'm your host, as per usual, Schmoopydady. If it's the first time you're watching the stream, the VOD, or the video on YouTube, I'm a monthly Hearthstone Wild Legend player who typically hits Legend first of the month, and after that I goof off. When I goof off, I play your decks. And I'm going to be doing my first sort of, well, I guess my second meta update since we've got the mini set cards coming out. We had the very, very small balance patch that came through and nerfed Fizzle, and that wasn't really relevant for Wild. And also, what was the other card that nerfed? And they buffed Void Ray. I don't know. All I can remember is they nerfed Fizzle and they buffed Void Ray. So I guess the other nerf didn't make much sense and didn't really matter too much. All right, let me hide chat real quick though. Hello, Tom. What's going on? All right. Anyway, so real quick, talking about the meta, talking about where we are at. The deck that I played to Legend this month was Exel Shadow Priest using this exact list. I called it Corb is Getting Milk because Corbet's taking a break from Discord, and his current username is I'm Getting Milk. And so we missed Dad. Dad's getting milk. But I had to make a decision. I could either keep Oracles or I could cut Oracles. And having tried to play Oracles, I bowed to chat's wisdom and cut them because they felt terrible. What did I replace? Replaced it with Sing Along Buddy. You could replace it with Sing Along Buddy. You could replace it with Serena Bloodfeather. You could use Neophytes, whatever. I really liked Sing Along Buddy. It's got a huge butt. It sticks around on board in the Void Touch deck, and the longer it sticks around with pings from Papercraft Angel, free pings from Papercraft Angel, it can be a shitload of damage. So I really liked the Sing Along Buddy. This is the list that I took. I went 25 and 14. I think I reported 24 and 14 and then realized I didn't record my final boss, which happens. I get excited and I start doing stuff. So anyway, this is what I would take to battle, and I think this is probably, maybe if it's not the best deck in the format, it is one of the top 3 best decks in the format, and it's probably the most spammable. Okay. Hostage Mage is Hostage Mage. I've talked about this deck a lot. I don't plan on, going on the ins and outs and how to play this. You guys have seen me play this a bunch of times. I really like the 1 copy of Shield Battery. I did get some reports back from NHL fan that he actually kind of liked the 1 Shield Battery in the list because it let him armor out of combo range. And so that's looking like a success, and I would absolutely do that. Some people think that this deck is the best deck in the format. Malh Druid. The one problem is it loses to Mage. It loses to Ice Block unless you tech in a Tight-Lipped Witness like a Psychopath. I would not do that, especially in this deck. In this deck, adding 1 more minion is incurring a ton of risk, including with the Dungar, including with the Pendants of Earth, including with the Nightshade Buds. It's just fucking scary. So I would be a little bit remiss if I were to try to horseshoe that in. But this deck is very, very good. It beats Libram Paladins like a drum, among other decks. It's fine into aggro because it's got 40 health. I would say Shadow Priest is probably the hardest matchup, but you can still high roll it, especially with Pendant of Earth, getting something that heals you essentially for, 9 mana, or even 10 if you're running the ANR. So, very good deck. We've done that before. We've talked about this list before. This list is an absolute disaster. Not in that like any of these cards are bad or that Philanthrope did a bad job. Filtrophobe did a bad job putting this together, but just like the last couple cards in Libram Paladin just look like hell. The card that I am terrified that I don't see often enough is Tigress Plushie. I think you should absolutely be running Tigress Plushie in your decks, especially if you feel like farming Shadow Priests. This card comes down and you buff it with Libram of Divinity, and then you know a second one's going to come down, and you're going to buff it with Libram of Divinity. Holy crap. So, in any case, give that a shot. I have seen a huge number of people, especially post-Legend, playing Reno Holy Wrath Paladin. Reno Holy Wrath Paladin is probably up there with, again, one of the better decks in the format. It's been trending more like tier 2, bottom of tier 1, but I don't know if somebody sniffed something or what, and everybody decided that this is the deck that they're moving towards. This has looked very, very... I think this deck is sneaky worse into aggro now than it has been in the past. Historically, in the past, it's been very successful sort of smashing aggro and smashing miracle rogues, and now it doesn't really do that. Now it's sort of trying to turbo the Holy Wrath combo, and it has some tools where it can stabilize. Like you drop a Lumia, the game ends against Shadow Priest, unless you're on like 3 health. So I think this deck is another very good option. I know recently Azalea Caria was just like, oh man, I don't know what to do. I'm having a bad time playing. And couldn't quite figure out what they wanted to find their legs with, and found it with Holy Wrath Paladin. So as good as these 4 decks are, I'm now going to sort of, 4 of these decks are fantastic. These 3 decks are fantastic. I'd actually probably put the Holy Wrath above the Librams, as annoying the Librams are. The Librams is the next tier 2 drooler. These 2 decks I think are very, very good. This is Corbet's version of Painlock. I haven't changed anything. The mini set hasn't added anything to it. But I made an observation when I was trying to try hard for 11x, and then when I was then climbing the next day with 11x. I think this matchup has flipped. One of the things that used to keep Seedlock in check in Wild was Shadow Priest. Like the day that Seedlock was unnerfed, everybody was playing Seedlock, and Seedlock had this crazy tier 1 win rate, and it was crushing things left and right. And Zeddy was writing angry tweets about how Seedlock is a bad thing for Hearthstone, and how dare they unnerf it, blah 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 blah, right? And then the Chinese community realized, oh, we just queue up 30 Shadow Priest and smork them down, and the Seedlocks were smorked. And within 2 or 3 days, the Seedlocks were completely cleaned out of the top tier of Wild. Nobody was playing it. You could still see people playing it further down, but I think several cards have changed and kind of flipped the matchup to where Renathal Demon Seed, which is less interested in spamming a giant stat board on turn 4-5, like the version that was running Dark Lair was, being a little bit more control. You still have that Demon Seed inevitability. So against most Reno piles that aren't Holy Wrath Paladin, you're probably faster than them. But still having a lot of control tools, like we still run Spirit Bomb. I've gotten Soul Freeze to shitload. I need to play around it better. We don't run Defile in this list, but I think you absolutely could. Domino Effect is very strong. And then we still have like the typical top end with the Imprisoned Horrors, Flesh Giants, and Molten Giants for board pressure. But the cards that really matter that I think have flipped the matchup against Shadow Priest are Hearthstone, which we can now spam sort of like quest completion and then also reward ourselves in Wild with like +10, +15 health. Employee of the Month. This is so good when you just slap it on a giant that has Rush. Like if you put Lifesteal on a Flesh Giant and then give it Rush and then just charge it into an Exel Shadow Priest board, what the hell do they do? What the hell do they really do about it? They have a really tough time clearing it off. They have to ping it down. You have to overtrade into it. If you overtrade into it, you're essentially Renoing. Like, it's kind of like Lumia in a very similar way, where it's like, here's this gigantic stat dump. Go. Good luck dealing with it. We even run Plague of Flames, which is kind of cute, where we spam enough little shitters down, and then we can sort of Plague of Flame our way out of trouble, which is good because Libram Paladin is typically, Domino Effect or Defile is not going to handle a Libram Paladin. So Plague of Flames it is. That has worked very well. I think this deck is sneaky good. I know this deck has sort of creeped up in the stats, and I've looked at it along with other people and said, where is it getting wins? Like, how does this deck beat things? If this thing is beating Exel Shadow Priest and doing okay with control elements into Libram Paladins, I could see this deck being actually pretty good. So consider playing this as an off-meta choice. My favorite deck to play right now, though, was an early Chinese rank 1 this month list called Zerg Midrange Hunter. In reality, we're running 1, 2, 3, 4 Zerg cards. Now, the 4 Zerg cards are very good. Nidus Worm being AI with, Arcane Intellect with benefits, discounting whatever you draw by 1 mana is bananas. Kerrigan is bananas. The spawning pool swing back is bananas. And what I think I like so much about this deck is it's like 4 or 5 packages kind of stapled together in a sort of Frankenstein style to make a pretty effective deck. You've got like the tokeny Observer of Myths, Patchwork Pals, Sneaky Snakes, very successful package that we see in Standard, right? We've got the Discover package where we've got, Nayeli doing Nayeli stuff, Titan Forge traps, and Alien Encounters, which again looks very, very standard. RC Rampage is a house. That sort of goes towards the tokeny package. We've got the small Zerg package, the Spawning Pools, the Nidus Worm, and the Kerrigan working together. We've got the Jormonger package with Trial of the Jormongers, and we've got Acid Maw and Dreadscale. And I think what's cutest of all is there's so much synergy in between these little packages, where I can have Spawning Pools, break it, drop some Zerglings, and trade into a Libram Paladin board with Acid Maw on board, and I'm pretty happy about that, right? We're just filling out the rest with, like, a nice Wild Seeds package. I loved that this person, whoever they are, cut Erelon. I think Erelon is too fucking slow. I love Mojo Master Zihi. If you've never played with this card, I think it's pretty good. It was a lot better when everybody was playing Reno Lone Ranger and resetting people to 5 mana and setting that Reno Lone Ranger turn back another 5 turns into the distant future, I think was very good. But for some reason, Hunter is especially good at making shitty little pressure boards that you sort of need to answer, or else there could be hell to pay. Between 5 to 7 mana, Hunter's really good at that, especially with stuff like Hope of Kael'thas. So Zihi, I think, sees a lot more mileage in Hunter because of that, because like sort of keeping it in that mid-game mode, keeping the game in that mid-game mode is something that Hunter really benefits from. I think the weakest card in this list is Lotheb. You might say, like, what the hell is the Tundra Rhino for? When Wild Spirits wake up, they can go face with Tundra Rhino. So Tundra Rhino, I think, is actually pretty good. Tundra Rhino and RC Rampage is a hoot too if you get to pull that off. I think the weakest card is probably Lotheb. Lotheb could be a second Rhino. Lotheb could be a Gorgon Zormu, just like 3 mana, print a board later. Like, whatever you want to do for Lotheb, you could do it. Or you could just keep Lotheb because Lotheb's okay. But Lotheb's weaker. Beastalker Tavish is kind of weaker, especially since we're also running Kerrigan and we're also running Nayeli. So we're like, how many hero powers do you really need? He's mostly anti-aggro for the burst, for the explosive trap. So what would you play with this instead of this? Insert good legendary that you like. Maybe you're a Grifta enjoyer because you play Standard. You could throw in Grifta for like Lotheb or Tavish or something like that. This list would do well. I have a lot of fun with this list. I do very well with this list. So meta is pretty much where it is. New cards didn't impact anything as far as the top goes. Continue really not to as the meta develops. Mostly what I'm seeing is a little bit more of a population going from Libram Paladins, at least in what I'm facing right now early in the month, into kind of Holy Wrath Paladins instead, but that might just be who I'm queuing into. Tends to be 11x and tends to be enjoying those slower games more. So like all the former Reno Priest spammers are just spamming this now. But watch out for Painlock. I think Painlock, Demon Seed, especially if you're running the control tools, especially if you get super paranoid and, I don't know, maybe cut a couple things and throw in Defiles as well. Even if Defile doesn't really look good on paper, you can feel better having it. If you gear this towards a little bit more anti-aggro, I think this deck is actually very, very good in the meta as well. So that is my update on where I think the wild meta is right now, at least my observations and what I've been playing. And if you enjoy that content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing on this YouTube channel.